Observe that there is a consequence.
Mr. Jones says the ministry is examining whether parents will have to pay a small technology fee if what is now paid for textbooks is not enough to cover e-books.
The $75 can suffice to carry the load based on the cost of the digital text. We have to examine that, and we will be examining that in a few weeks along with them. I know that some schools have made contact to have books digitized for the students, but I want a holistic approach rather than a fragmented approach, and that is across the secondary school system.
Of course, with all the technology being used, the availability of bandwidth will be a problem.
I know that there can be deterioration if a whole lot of people go on at the same time. So we have to be able to counter that, because it could be expected at some time that there will be a greater use of the technology and therefore greater use of the bandwidth. So we have to have that available. We can also have a situation, particularly during exam periods, where there is a greater throughput of bandwidth to the system, rather than at times where you're not doing testing across the system.
Minister Jones says the two main mobile providers have plans to increase bandwidth across the system, and contracts to make this a reality will soon be in place. Lisa Broom, Cbc News.
Well, scores of Barbadians are being equipped to cope with drought situations. It comes with the launch of the Barbados Water Authority's personal tank program in a few weeks' time.
The program is a joint effort between the Barbados Water Authority and the City of Bridgetown Credit Union. In the first phase, over 600 450-gallon tanks will be made available.
That will then see persons being able to sign up for a full tank solution, no interest over a 5-year period under a hire purchase agreement. Anyone who does not qualify for a loan, who actually will be living in the districts that we will advertise to come in first, then we will handle those persons. Persons who qualify for a loan, we will then send them over to COB. Hence the reason for the partnership.
The BWA has also been helping 50 families severely affected by the last drought. Those families, 10 each from St. Peter, St. James, St. John, St. Andrew and St. Thomas, have been notified that they have qualified for a free tank solution.
That includes the tank, the pump, base if needed be, and so a full tank solution. And it's going to obviously help persons in the event that the water is off, then the tank will kick in. And if for some reason that there's an extended outage, our water tanker service will then assist.
One of the recipients is Boscobel resident Tanya Payne.
Well, I'm very thankful for the tank, right? And I have like my kids and I have a disabled cousin, right? So I'm very grateful. Pardon? He's a gentleman. He has ataxia.
The BWA communication manager says means tests will be conducted to determine which householders qualify for the loans. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
Well, Barbados is spending more money on crime and security at a time when there have been major cuts to all sectors. The disclosure from Attorney General and Minister of Home Affairs Adriel Brathwaite as he delivered this week's Democratic Labour Party's lunchtime lecture.
From a Barbados perspective, for example, it means that we spend about $155 million on crime and security issues, money that can be used or should have been used for education and other developmental purposes. Because of crime in Barbados and because of crime across the region, that money is now being diverted into those, well, let me say, non-productive areas.
The Attorney General also believes that greater emphasis should be placed on crime prevention.
We have this thing in Barbados that in fact, let us lock them up. That's the answer. But I'm saying to you that that has proven not to be the answer. That locking away our people for 5 years, 3 years, 4 years, however long, and then bring them back onto the streets, not having addressed whatever drove them to the criminal behavior, they come back out and go back in at a rate of 65 or 66%.
Well, coming up, we will tell you who is heeding the warning not to fly kites around power lines. Stay with us.
The Barbados Government Information Service is now located at the old Town Hall building in the city, just opposite St. Mary's Church. Trying to reach us, then call us at the PBX 535-1900 or 535-1901 or 535-1902, and our fax number is now 535-1937. That's the Barbados Government Information Service, now at the old Town Hall building in the city.
Join us for the Pine Hill Knapsack semi-finals and finals March 15th and 22nd. Live coverage on CBC TV 8, brought to you by Pine Hill. Good Time Snacks, Barbados Public Workers Cooperative Credit Union, National HIV/AIDS Commission, Solar Dynamics, Career Development Institute, Fresh Vitamins, Easy Pave, Amaze, Rayside Construction Limited, Ensure, and Sandals Barbados.
Well, there's been a steady reduction in the number of kites caught in power lines, which is seen as a good sign so far for the Easter season. An official from the Barbados Light and Power Company says it's all because of an awareness campaign being carried out by that company in the island schools. Communications Coordinator Jennifer Blackman spoke to the media about that initiative during a BL&P safety presentation for students of the Wesley Hall Junior School.
We have had a reduction in the number of incidents we've had with kites over the 4 years that we've been doing this very targeted approach to schools. So we started doing what we call What's New Schools every Easter, specifically for all of the schools on the island, primary and secondary. And there's been a steady decrease of the number of kites caught in lines over the past 4 years. So the education is working.
The students were exposed to a number of practical demonstrations on how electricity works and how to avoid the dangers associated with it. Principal of the junior school, Herbert Gittins, believes it couldn't have come at a better time.
Children are very excited around this time in terms of kite flying, and it is important that all the safety measures that are necessary for students to be safe while they are flying their kites are taught to them. So it is good to have the actual practitioners involved in providing the necessary information to ensure that our students are safe during the kite flying season.
And the Combermere School and Bay Primary have also received visits from the team. The Media Resource Department of the Ministry of Education has been associated with that program for the last 3 years. Media Resource Officer Michelle Griffith says another venture on the horizon is a science exhibition in May.
That again is focused on electricity and renewable energy, and we have many schools, both primary and secondary, which are taking part in that competition.
Despite the inherent challenges, blind and visually impaired people are being encouraged to maintain their independence. This encouragement is coming through the efforts of the National Disabilities Unit.
People living with visual impairments and blindness no longer have to view their disability as a sentence of solitude. Through the National Disabilities Unit's efforts, they are learning how to manage with varying degrees of vision loss. Using assistive technology and devices, Adjustment to Blindness Officer with the National Disabilities Unit, Marjorie Watson, shows how affected people can maintain independent lifestyles.
Usually I have to do a little counseling with them, and then I use most of my guys here as inspiration to get them back into the regular society. And you know, they vow that they will never do anything on their own, but eventually they overcome it.
President of the Senate and IT Specialist for the Blind and Visually Impaired at the NDU, Senator Carrie-Ann Eiffel, says with the high rate of diabetes among Barbadians, more young people are developing vision problems. She says businesses should not be afraid to employ the disabled.
Most of them are apprehensive. I think with more education they would be more willing to understand. Legislation, of course, would help greatly. But the reality is a lot of the challenges we face is due to ignorance. Persons don't know that this is possible. People say, oh, I didn't think that you could. and they limit you.
Senator Eiffel called for more awareness by society of the needs and rights of the disabled. Lorna Jones, CBC News.